And finally, worker exploitation news roundup. Many companies have been doing that fuckery again, messing with people's wages in the follow-up to a pandemic with a recession on the horizon seems like a particularly messy way to run your house, corporations. You can't be angry that people don't want to work if every time they show up you charge them a face-punching tax to not punch them in the face, and then you go ahead and kick them in the face instead. So, who's been fucking around? Let's have a look. Domino's! Oh no! If Domino's goes down, where will I get my average pizza whose best quality is the cheese inside the crust? Well, Domino's has gone and told its franchisees to pay workers according to workplace agreements it struck with the fast food union rather than the award rate, which was wrong. So very wrong. An industrial scale wrongness resulted in their employees earning significantly less than the minimum wage. Significantly! Ouch! There are a lot of things your employers could do with regard to the minimum wage, like for example, pay it. But convincing franchisees to pay less than it is what we in business call a big business no-no, from Billy Big Book of Bad Business No-Nos. Or for the younger ones, Fisher-Price's My First Workplace Exploitation playset. And now we have a class action trial. We love a good class action here. It's like unionizing, but it takes longer, it's slower, and is generally much more publicly damaging of reputation for the company. The case revealed tens of thousands of staff has been underpaid, alleging that drivers and in-store staff were underpaid up to $11 an hour or $10,000 a year, almost a full year's rent, depending on where you live. Investigations by The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald detailed arrangements between Big Business and the Shop Assistants Union, the SDA, affected more than 250,000 workers, which shouldn't surprise any of us who pay attention to this sort of stuff. The SDA has a very questionable reputation, but please guys don't take that as a full representation of what it's like being in a union. There are much better unions, it's just the SDA. Well, the SDA is a big... Anyway, the SDA is a problem, but there are plenty of good unions. During opening arguments, it was revealed Domino's actions amounted to misleading and deceptive conduct. For example, the in-house bookkeeping system defaulted to the agreement wage, which is less than the award wage. A beautiful example of automation fucking up the lowest paid workers. Once again, a new tradition that I am not super on board with, even if we keep winning high-paying class actions. It's just easier to pay us properly in the first place. Look, capitalists. Not every industry needs to have its own Robodebt-style scandal. Spoiler alert, the lesson of iRobot was, robots are efficient, but they are cold and lack a human touch to dealing with situations and should not be the final voice of responsibility in big societal moments. And if you fuck around, Will Smith will fuck you up.
Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Domino's claims that even though information about the wages may have been conveyed, many franchises did not read the information. Why bother chasing it up and confirming? Making sure that the business is run to a respectable level and doesn't bring your franchise into ill repute. Why would you want to do that? And possibly even to a less degree, their employees don't, starve. Bunch of woke nonsense, if you ask me. They said as each individual franchise operated differently, what happened at one outlet cannot be applied universally. I mean, it's not like staying across the award wage of your business is a huge part of running a business. If it were, more businesses would do it. And if there's anything you should have learned from listening to this show, it is businesses be stealing. You know the old cliches, you know how society is, women be shopping, men be murdering women, and businesses be stealing. Now, as a result, in 2016, an estimate by investment bank Deutsche Bank found that Domino's was saving more than $30 million a year in wages by paying workers under its workplace agreements rather than the fast food award. So now when people ask you why you don't like Domino's, you have two reasons, and one of them won't be related to obnoxious internet culture. Alright, who else has been fucking around? Let's have a little look-see. It appears to be... the University of Melbourne. If you could get a degree in pretension, you'd get it there. Uni Melb has started paying back 1,500 current and former workers $22 million for unpaid work, bringing it to a total of $31.5 million in underpayments over the past year. Melbourne is one of around 20 universities nationally that have been caught up in wage theft scandals. In typical Uni Melbourne style though, the people who have been ripped off by Uni Melbourne are looking down on the people who had to get ripped off by other universities like Monash or La Trobe. Acting Victorian Secretary for the National Tertiary Education Union, Sarah Roberts, said insecure work was at the heart of this wage theft scandal, going on to say that greed was at the brains, a tiny set of balls was behind the courage, and that they are securely hidden in a fancy underpants that was the wizard, in that they seemed to be the thing that the story was revolved around, but ultimately they had no impact on the story at all. What can you do? There is no place like home. Alison Barnes, the National Tertiary Education Union National President, said wage theft needed to be made a federal crime and that universities had it baked into their business models, as do other businesses like hospitality, retail, tourism, journalism, writing, mining, legal, marketing, real estate, sales, women's sports, healthcare, baking. Actually, it might be easier to just list all of the industries that it hasn't been baked into. Politics and CEOs. And maybe lobbying. As great as it would be to see some managers and CEOs go to jail for underpaying their staff, the real issue would be that Australia's whistleblower laws are still so poor, they'd end up sharing a jail cell with them. And they'll likely get a harsher sentence than the CEOs. Speaking of horrible hospitality, fast food restaurants and cafes across Brisbane have been underpaying workers. See, I wasn't lying when I did my big fun list before. And the Fair Work Ombudsman has recovered more than $400,000 in wages. Nice work, Fair Work Ombudsman. Of the 77 businesses impacted across South Brisbane, Fortitude Valley, Sunnybank and the CBD, 75% had breached workplace laws. 75%! Just feels like they aren't trying hard enough. Those are amateur numbers, Brisbane. It's Australia's motto, right up to the federal government. ABC, always be corrupting. Seems the most breaches were failure to pay penalty rates or casual loading and underpayment of the minimum hourly rate. Probably because they forgot that penalty rates existed after the last government buried them deep in a mine. That's why we keep digging those mines, people. We need a hole deep enough that they will never be found again. Because if we, the people, start digging to find our own secrets, then the coalition will come up and stand behind us and start calling us hypocrites about how now we're digging up the earth. When we do it, it's a crime, but when you do it, it's fine. So, we're going to make that decision. For those who are unsure, there are often clear signs when a breach is deliberately happening. We call these employer red flags. If you encounter an employer red flag, make like Jordan Peele's breakthrough film and get out. Things to keep an eye on. The employer might not give out pay slips. Maybe they have 2 sets of books, or they tell a worker to keep their pay a secret. Ooh, some classic red flag behaviour there. As well as calling the workplace a family and excessive finger guns. Those are on the lesser scale of the red flag chart. Sandra Parker of the Fair Work Ombudsman said, employees can't pick and choose the laws they follow. Going on to clarify, that is of course unless they're good friends with politicians or make big donations or are Harvey Norman. Right, Jerry Harvey? Isn't that right? How you going paying back that stolen JobKeeper, Jerry Harvey? Huh? How are you going with that? Huh? Jerry Harvey? Now, moving on. Who else has been fucking around? Oh, Deliveroo has entered the chat. and entered voluntary administration, leaving thousands of restaurants that used them and 15,000 local riders who were exploited by them in need of a new system of oppression they need to get used to. Which is the hardest part, really. You get a certain kind of numbness to the exploitation that you're under, and suddenly it gets ripped out from under you, and you have to get used to a whole other horrible different kind of exploitation. It's hard. It's hard out here for a pimp. The email they sent out said, "This has been a difficult decision to make. We have enjoyed serving you the amazing food that Australia is known for." Hang on, wait, what? What? The amazing food Australia has a cuisine? What is our amazing food on offer from Deliveroo? I never saw a place offer up some delicious crocodile or kangaroo or emu, nor any of the wild meals that they serve on Survivor when they do a version of it in Australia, like kangaroo dick or witchetty grubs. Something that might actually serve to prove to be a distinct and interesting presentation instead of 1,000 American-style burger outlets. I don't mind a couple, but I've got to switch it up a little bit. Deliveroo blamed challenging economic conditions, which requires us to take difficult decisions. And what are those conditions? Oh, have a look-see here. The incoming gig economy laws in the first half of 2023. Ooh! Which prompted Deliveroo to end its email citing the main reason it was actually leaving was this kind of woke madness where the government expects companies to be accountable for paying their employees, even when they aren't employees, but simply people who work for them on a frequent basis. Madness. Despite starting in the market ahead of Uber Eats, it fell substantially behind. I mean, it's hard to feel bad for Deliveroo, the company that tried to oppress its workers, not as workers arguing that the riders overwhelmingly want flexibility over money and rights, and that only 47% of gig workers surveyed wanted to be classified as employees, as opposed to food delivery robots that were powered by oppression. But it's hard to stay ahead of the competition when your major rival is an unscrupulous bastard captured and turned into an app like an evil genie whose wishes always come true, but with a catch. Oh, you want flexibility? Done! Now your death is super flexible. It will come at any moment. How's that for options? After all, a 2019 WorkSafe Australia study found road transport workers remain the most likely to be killed at work, with a fatality rate of 9.4 times higher than the average across all industries, and that does include going to war. Wild. Why would you not want to get paid properly or any sort of benefits for those sort of risks? Firm Corda Mentha has been appointed as the voluntary administrator, but Administrator Mark Corda said Deliveroo was unable to achieve sufficient market share in Australia to develop a sustainable business, which is a reverse News Corp who has the opposite problem. No matter how much market share they take up, they just can't develop a sustainable business. With the UK parent company deciding to wind up Deliveroo Australia, administrators said they had no alternative but to cease operations immediately in the absence of financial support. They should have spent some money donating to the Liberal Party. Then they'd have found some financial solvency. Look, they would have given them money, and then we would be conscripting Centrelink recipients to use as delivery riders for people with real jobs. If I understand the rhetoric used against people on Centrelink, this simply shows a lack of business foresight and willingness to do what it takes to survive. The decision to cease trading immediately means all of the company's employed staff in Australia had their employment terminated suddenly. I guess it is fortunate that Deliveroo had so few actual employed staff. Now, I am not one to gloat over people losing jobs, but it must really suck for the people who suddenly lost their work security and livelihood without a moment's notice, as though they were nothing. Maybe in their next job they won't act like some sort of reverse Icarus of integrity, diving too close to the bottom of the scruples barrel in their search for money. Unfortunately, the administrator is working to calculate and secure the company's employed staff's outstanding pay and entitlements. It's a shame, really. Whereas delivery riders, considered contractors, not employees, would be treated as unsecured creditors. And any money owed by Deliveroo would need to be fought for with a proof of debt from the administrator to make a claim. They will not be guaranteed to receive the money that they are owed in full. But lucky for them, the administrator said riders could keep their company supplied kit. Oh yeah, baby! So if they have a dress-up party coming up where they can go dressed as themselves when they were desperate enough to dream that this could be a viable form of surviving, or they could dress up as the ghost of failed capitalism past. Ooh, what a bunch of cunts.